Samuel Grant had closed billion-dollar deals without blinking. But in Central Park, he froze, because his dog was choking right in front of him, and Samuel had no idea how to save him. Then a woman he'd never seen before shoved him aside, saved the dog in seconds, and walked away like it meant nothing. Samuel thought that was the end of it. But finding her again would cost him the one thing he refused to lose, and force him to choose between the woman who brought him back to life and the mother he was already losing. Enjoy the story. Samuel Grant stood frozen in the middle of Central Park, his golden retriever convulsing at his feet, choking on something he couldn't see. His hands trembled as he dropped to his knees, his expensive suit jacket hitting the dirt. Thor's eyes were wide with panic, his body jerking violently as he tried to breathe. Samuel's mind went blank. All the millions in his bank account, all the power he wielded in boardrooms across Manhattan, and he couldn't save the one living thing that mattered to him anymore. Move! The command came from behind him, sharp and authoritative. Before Samuel could turn around, a woman shoved him aside with surprising force. She dropped next to Thor, her weathered hands immediately finding the right position on the dog's abdomen. One thrust, two, three. A chunk of branch flew from Thor's mouth, and the dog gasped, air flooding back into his lungs. Samuel stared at the woman as she cradled Thor's head, checking his breathing, running her fingers through his fur with practiced care. She was probably in her early 30s with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing worn jeans and a faded veterinary clinic t-shirt. No makeup, no jewelry. Nothing that suggested she cared what anyone thought about her appearance. "He's okay," she said, not looking at Samuel, "but you need to watch him better. Dogs don't just choke on branches for no reason. He probably went after a squirrel and grabbed the first thing in his mouth." Samuel's voice came out hoarse. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if—" "You would have watched your dog die," she interrupted, finally meeting his eyes. Hers were green, sharp, assessing. "Next time, learn the Heimlich maneuver for dogs. It's not hard." She stood up, brushing dirt from her knees. "Wait," Samuel said, getting to his feet. "I'm Samuel Grant. I need to repay you somehow. Dinner? A donation to your clinic? Whatever you need." The woman's expression shifted to something between amusement and annoyance. "I don't need anything from you, Samuel Grant. I did what anyone with basic veterinary training would do. Your dog is fine. That's enough." "At least tell me your name." She hesitated, then sighed. Alice Chen. "And no, I don't want your money or your dinner invitation." Before Samuel could respond, she turned and jogged away, disappearing into the crowd of weekend park-goers. Samuel stood there with Thor panting happily at his feet, completely oblivious to how close he'd come to death. And for the first time in 3 years, Samuel felt something other than numbness. That feeling terrified him. The penthouse apartment on Fifth Avenue had never felt more like a mausoleum than it did that evening. Samuel sat in his home office, Thor curled at his feet, staring at the city lights below. 42 floors of steel and glass separated him from the street where real people lived real lives. Up here, everything was sanitized, controlled, perfect, just like his life used to be. His phone buzzed. His executive assistant, Marcus. "Mr. Grant, the Singapore deal is falling apart. Chen Industries is pulling out unless you fly there personally to renegotiate. They want you there by Wednesday." Samuel closed his eyes. Wednesday was the day he'd promised to visit his mother at the care facility in Connecticut. She wouldn't remember if he showed up or not, the doctor said. The Alzheimer's had progressed too far. But he'd remember. He'd remember every promise he broke. "Tell them I can't make it," Samuel heard himself say. Silence on the other end. Then, "Mr. Grant, this is a $150 million deal. If we lose Chen Industries, the board will—" I said, "Tell them I can't make it, Marcus." Reschedule for the following week. He hung up before Marcus could argue. His hand was shaking. He'd just potentially cost his company a fortune, and for what? A visit to his mother who wouldn't even recognize him? No, not for nothing. Because somewhere between building his empire and watching his mother's mind slowly disappear, Samuel had lost something essential. He'd lost the ability to care about anything except the next deal, the next acquisition, the next number in his bank account. And today, watching a stranger save his dog's life without expecting anything in return, something in that cold machinery had cracked. He needed to find Alice Chen. The next Saturday, Samuel returned to Central Park at the same time, same spot. Thor pulled eagerly at his leash, as if he'd forgotten his near-death experience completely. Samuel scanned the joggers, the dog walkers, the tourists taking selfies near Bethesda Fountain. No sign of Alice. He came back the following Saturday, and the one after that. On the fourth Saturday, Thor suddenly jerked the leash from Samuel's hand and bolted. Samuel ran after him, his heart pounding, until he saw what Thor had spotted. Alice, stretching against a tree, wearing the same worn running shoes and another faded t-shirt. Thor jumped on her, tail wagging frantically. Alice's stern expression softened immediately as she knelt to greet him. "Hey, big guy, good to see you're still alive." Samuel caught up, breathing hard. "He remembers you." Alice looked up and her smile faded. "You're still coming here?" "I walk Thor here every Saturday," Samuel said. It wasn't technically a lie. He'd only started coming here after meeting her, but she didn't need to know that. She stood, giving Thor one last scratch behind the ears. "Right. Well, he looks healthy. That's good." She started to leave, but Samuel spoke quickly. "Why did you become a veterinarian?" Alice stopped. She turned back slowly, suspicion in her eyes. "Why do you care?" "Because you saved my dog's life and wouldn't let me thank you properly. Because you're the first person in years who didn't want something from me. Because I can't stop thinking about—" He stopped himself. That was too much. Too honest. But Alice's expression shifted. Something flickered there. Maybe curiosity, maybe pity. "I became a vet. Because animals don't lie. They don't manipulate. When they're in pain, they show it. When they love you, they show it. They're honest in a way people rarely are." "Sounds like you've been hurt by people." Alice's jaw tightened. "Sounds like you're trying to psychoanalyze someone you don't know." "You're right. I'm sorry." Samuel took a breath. "Look, can we start over? I'm Samuel. I'm apparently terrible at reading social cues, and I make my dog nervous with my hovering. I'd like to buy you a coffee, just coffee, no strings attached." "Why?" It was a fair question. Samuel thought about all the easy lies he could tell. "Because I want to thank you. Because I need closure. Because I'm bored." Instead, he told the truth. "Because I watched you save my dog without hesitation, without thinking about what you'd get out of it, and it reminded me that people like you still exist. And I haven't been around people like you in a very long time." Alice studied him for a long moment. Samuel could see her weighing his words, searching for the manipulation, the angle, the hidden agenda. Finally, she sighed. "One coffee. But we're going to the diner on Amsterdam, not some fancy place where they charge $12 for a cappuccino." Samuel smiled. "Deal." The diner was everything Samuel's usual haunts weren't. Loud, cramped, smelling of bacon grease and burnt coffee. The vinyl booth squeaked when he slid in across from Alice. She ordered black coffee and a slice of apple pie. Samuel ordered the same, even though he hadn't eaten pie in probably a decade. "So," Alice said, pouring sugar into her coffee, "what does Samuel Grant do when he's not letting his dog eat branches in Central Park?" "I run an investment firm," Samuel said carefully. He'd learned over the years that telling people exactly how wealthy he was changed everything. "It's boring. Lots of spreadsheets and conference calls." "What about you? Where do you practice?" "Brooklyn Animal Hospital. I mostly see cats and dogs, occasionally a rabbit or a ferret. Last week someone brought in a chicken. That was new." She took a bite of pie, closing her eyes briefly in appreciation. "God, this is good. I haven't had pie in months." "Why not?" "Because I work 60-hour weeks, And when I get home, I'm too tired to do anything except feed my cat and pass out." She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. "That's what life looks like for most people, Samuel. We don't have time for leisure." There was no bitterness in her voice, just a statement of fact. Samuel felt a pang of something uncomfortable. Guilt, maybe. Shame. "I used to work like that," he said quietly, "before I made enough money to hire people to work for me. And now? Now I work even more, just on bigger deals with bigger numbers. The stakes get higher, but the game stays the same." He surprised himself with his honesty. Alice tilted her head. "You don't sound happy about it." "I'm not sure I remember what happy feels like." The words hung between them. Alice's expression softened, and Samuel saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected. Understanding. "Yeah," she said softly. "I get that." They talked for 2 hours. Samuel learned that Alice had grown up in Queens, the daughter of immigrants who'd worked in a laundromat to put her through college. She'd graduated from Cornell's veterinary school with crushing student debt that she was still paying off at 33. She'd been engaged once to a lawyer who'd seemed perfect until he started criticizing everything about her clothes, her friends, her career choice. She'd finally left him 2 years ago and hadn't dated since. "I don't trust easily anymore," Alice admitted, finishing her second slice of pie. "Every time I think someone is genuine, I find out they want something. My ex wanted a wife who'd look good at firm parties and wouldn't complain when he worked late. My college boyfriend wanted someone to support him while he found himself. My high school sweetheart wanted someone to practice on before he found someone better." She laughed, but it was hollow. "I'm basically everyone's rough draft." Samuel's chest tightened. "You deserve better than that." "Maybe. Or maybe I just have terrible taste in men." She checked her watch. "I should go. I have a cat with diabetes that needs monitoring this afternoon." "Can I see you again?" Samuel asked. Alice hesitated. "Why would you want to?" "Because this is the most honest conversation I've had in years, because you didn't ask me about my net worth or try to impress me, because I like you, Alice." She stood, grabbing her worn jacket from the booth. "I'll be at the park next Saturday, same time. If you happen to be there with Thor, maybe we'll run into each other." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. Samuel watched her leave, feeling something dangerously close to hope. Over the next 6 weeks, Saturday mornings became the highlight of Samuel's week. He and Alice fell into a rhythm. Meet at the park, walk with Thor, then coffee at the diner. Sometimes they talked about heavy things, their pasts and regrets. Other times they kept it light, arguing about movies and laughing at Thor's attempts to befriend every squirrel in Manhattan. Samuel found himself thinking about Alice at odd moments. During board meetings, he'd remember something funny she'd said. At charity galas surrounded by people in designer gowns, he'd think about her worn jeans and how much more real she seemed. He started leaving work earlier, saying no to weekend business trips, protecting his Saturday mornings like they were sacred. Marcus noticed. "You've been different lately," his assistant said one Thursday afternoon. "Happier." Lee. Samuel didn't confirm or deny it, but he knew Marcus was right. It was late October when Samuel finally gathered the courage to ask. They were sitting in their usual booth at the diner, and Alice was telling him about a Great Dane who'd swallowed a sock when Samuel interrupted. "Alice, I need to tell you something." She paused mid-sentence. "That sounds ominous." "I like you, more than like you. I think about you constantly. You've become the best part of my week, and I want more than Saturday mornings in a park." He took a breath. "I want to take you to dinner, a real date. I want to see where this could go." Alice set down her coffee cup slowly. Her expression was unreadable. "Samuel, you know why I don't date. I know you've been hurt, but I'm not those other guys. Give me a chance to prove it." "You're a millionaire investment banker," Alice said quietly. "I'm a veterinarian with student debt and a studio apartment in Brooklyn. We're from different worlds." "So what? None of that matters." It always matters, Samuel. It always ends up mattering. But even as she said it, Samuel could see the war in her eyes. Part of her wanted to say yes. He could feel it. "One date," he pressed. "If you hate it, we go back to just Saturdays. But if you don't—" He let the possibility hang in the air. Alice was quiet for a long time. Then, almost reluctantly, she nodded. "One date, but somewhere normal. No fancy restaurants or helicopter rides or whatever rich people do." Samuel grinned. "How about dinner and a movie?" "I haven't been to a movie theater in years." "Fine, but I'm paying for my own ticket." "Alice?" "Those are my terms, Samuel. Take them or leave them." He took them. Their first date was the following Friday. Samuel picked Alice up from her apartment, a cramped fifth-floor walk-up with peeling paint in the hallway. She answered the door in a simple black dress, her hair down for the first time since he'd met her. She was beautiful. "You clean up nice," he said, then immediately felt stupid for saying it. But Alice smiled. "You're not wearing a suit. I wasn't sure you owned normal clothes." They went to a Thai restaurant in the East Village that Alice loved, where the tables were close together, and the music was loud, and the food was incredible. Then they saw an action movie in a theater that smelled like popcorn and had sticky floors. Samuel couldn't remember the last time he'd had so much fun. Walking back to Alice's apartment, their hands brushed accidentally. Samuel took a chance and intertwined his fingers with hers. She didn't pull away. "I had a really good time tonight, Alice," Samuel said at her door. "Me too," she admitted. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone more arrogant, someone who'd take me to a place with a Michelin star and expect me to be impressed by his wealth. Someone who'd make me feel small." She looked up at him. "But you didn't do any of that." Samuel cupped her face gently. "Can I kiss you?" Alice's breath caught. "Yeah," she whispered. "You can." The kiss was soft, tentative, full of possibility. When they pulled apart, Alice was smiling, really smiling, and Samuel felt like he'd won something more valuable than any business deal. "Good night, Samuel Grant," she said. "Good night, Alice Chen." The next 3 months were the happiest of Samuel's life. He and Alice fell into a pattern of dinners, movies, long walks with Thor. She introduced him to her world. Dive bars in Brooklyn, hole-in-the-wall restaurants in Queens, street fairs in the Lower East Side. He introduced her to his world, albeit carefully. The occasional nice restaurant, a Broadway show, a weekend trip to the Hamptons. Alice was wary of his money at first, uncomfortable when he tried to pay for expensive things. But Samuel learned to navigate her boundaries, to find the middle ground between his world and hers. He learned that she loved Thai food and hated sushi, that she cried at sad movies but laughed at horror films, that she sang off-key in the shower and had a secret addiction to reality TV. He fell in love with her, completely, irrevocably, terrifyingly in love. He didn't tell her, not yet. He wanted to wait for the right moment. That moment came in January, on a cold Saturday morning in Central Park. It had snowed overnight, and the park was a winter wonderland. Thor bounded through the fresh powder, while Samuel and Alice walked hand in hand. "Alice," Samuel said, stopping under a snow-covered oak tree, "I need to tell you something." She turned to him, her cheeks pink from the cold. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right, actually. For the first time in years, everything's right." He took her hands. "I love you, Alice. I love your stubbornness and your independence and the way you care about every sick animal that comes into your clinic. I love how you call me out when I'm being pretentious and how you make me laugh and how you've reminded me what it feels like to be human. I love you, and I don't care that we're from different worlds. I just want to be in whatever world you're in." Alice's eyes filled with tears. "Samuel, You don't have to say it back," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know." "Shut up," Alice said, and kissed him hard. When she pulled back, she was crying and smiling at the same time. "I love you too, you idiot. I've loved you since that second coffee at the diner when you admitted you were miserable. I love you, Samuel Grant." They stood there in the snow, holding each other, while Thor barked joyfully around them. Samuel had never felt more complete. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. Samuel's mother, Anna, had been declining rapidly. The care facility had called 3 times in the past month about her deteriorating condition. Samuel visited every Sunday, sitting by her bedside, telling her about his week, even though she rarely recognized him anymore. This Sunday, he decided to bring Alice. "Samuel, are you sure?" Alice had asked when he invited her. "Meeting someone's parent is a big step." "I want you to meet her," Samuel said. "Even if she doesn't remember it, I will. And it matters to me." The Meadowbrook Care Facility was an hour north of the city, a sprawling complex that tried hard to look cheerful despite housing people in various stages of losing themselves. Samuel held Alice's hand as they walked down the sterile hallway to room 247. Anna Grant sat in a wheelchair by the window, staring out at the snow-covered grounds. She was only 68, but looked decades older, her once vibrant face slack and confused. "Hi, Mom," Samuel said gently, kneeling beside her. "I brought someone to meet you. This is Alice. She's very special to me." Anna's vacant eyes focused on Alice, and for a moment Samuel thought he saw recognition there. Then her face contorted with rage. "Who is this woman?" Anna hissed, her voice sharp and cruel. "Why did you bring a stranger here? Are you trying to replace me?" "Mom, no," Samuel started, but Anna was already working herself into a fury. "Get her out! Get this woman out of my room!" Anna tried to stand from her wheelchair, shaking with anger. "You think I'm stupid? I see what she's doing. She's after your money, Samuel. She's after everything your father and I worked for." "Mrs. Grant, please," Alice said softly. "I didn't mean to upset you." "Don't you dare speak to me." Anna's hand shot out, grabbing a glass of water from her bedside table and hurling it at Alice. The glass shattered against the wall, water spraying everywhere. A nurse rushed in. "Mr. Grant, we need you to step outside. Your mother needs to calm down." Samuel was frozen, torn between his mother thrashing in her wheelchair and Alice standing silent and pale by the door. He watched as 2 nurses struggled to calm Anna, watched as his mother screamed obscenities at the woman he loved. "Samuel," Alice said quietly, "I'm going to wait in the car." She left before he could respond. Samuel stayed with his mother as the nurses administered a sedative, watched as her rage slowly faded into confusion, then sleep. When she was finally calm, the head nurse pulled him aside. "Your mother's aggression has been increasing," Nurse Patterson said gently. "It's part of the disease progression. She doesn't mean what she says." "I know," Samuel said numbly. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. He found Alice in the parking lot, sitting in his car, staring straight ahead. He got in beside her, the silence heavy between them. "I'm so sorry," Samuel finally said. "She didn't mean any of that. The disease—" "I know," Alice interrupted. Her voice was flat. "I know she's sick. I know it's not personal." "But—" Alice turned to him, and Samuel saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Doubt. "Samuel, your mother hates me. Even if it's the disease talking, it's still going to be like this every time I'm around her." "Can you really choose me over her?" "That's not a fair question." "Life isn't fair," Alice said. "Your mother is dying. She needs you, and I—" She trailed off, looking away. "I can't be the reason you have less time with her." "You're not—" "Yes, I am, because every minute you spend with me is a minute you're not spending with her, and eventually you're going to resent me for it." Her voice broke. "I've been here before, Samuel. I've been the person who gets pushed aside when something more important comes up. I can't do it again." "Alice, you're not being pushed aside. I love you." "I know you do, but I also know that love isn't always enough." She opened the car door. "Take me home, please." The drive back to Brooklyn was silent. When Samuel pulled up to her building, Alice turned to him one last time. "I need some space to think," she said, "about us, about what this relationship actually looks like. Because right now I don't see how we make it work." So that's it? One bad day and you're giving up? Alice flinched. It's not giving up. It's being realistic. Your mother is dying, Samuel. You should be focused on her, not on trying to make me feel included in something I can't be part of. You're wrong, Samuel said desperately. You can be part of it. We can figure this out. Can we? Alice asked. Or will I just be waiting on the sidelines until your mother passes, and then what? We build a relationship on the foundation of me being patient while you grieved? That's not healthy, Samuel. For either of us. She got out of the car before he could respond. Samuel watched her disappear into her building, feeling like he was watching his heart walk away. He didn't hear from Alice for 3 weeks. His calls went to voicemail. His texts went unanswered. He stopped going to the park on Saturdays because he couldn't bear the possibility of not seeing her there. Instead, he threw himself into work with a vengeance that alarmed even Marcus. He flew to Singapore for the Chen Industries deal, personally negotiating for 72 hours straight until they signed. He closed 4 other deals in rapid succession, each one bigger than the last. The board was thrilled. His bank account grew by tens of millions. He felt nothing. On Sundays, he visited his mother. Anna was declining rapidly now, sleeping most of the day, lucid for only minutes at a time. During one of her clear moments, she grabbed Samuel's hand. "Where's that girl?" Anna asked, her voice weak. "The one you brought here." Samuel's throat tightened. "She's not coming back, Mom." "Why not?" "Because of what you said to her. Because she thinks I have to choose between you and her." Anna's eyes, dimmed by disease but momentarily clear, filled with tears. "Did I say something bad?" "Yeah, Mom, you did." "I don't remember." She squeezed his hand. "But I remember her face. She looked at you like you were her whole world. Don't let me ruin that, Samuel. I'm already ruined. Don't let me take you down, too." "Mom?" "Promise me," Anna insisted. "Promise me you'll fight for her." Samuel promised, but he didn't know how to fight for someone who wouldn't answer his calls. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Marcus. "You've been miserable for weeks," his assistant said one morning, standing in Samuel's office with unusual determination. "And I'm tired of watching you destroy yourself, so I did something I probably shouldn't have." "What did you do, Marcus?" "I tracked down Alice Chen's work address and found out she'll be at a veterinary conference at the Javits Center this Saturday. You're going." Samuel looked up sharply. "She doesn't want to see me." "Then let her tell you that to your face instead of hiding behind voicemail." Marcus set a printed conference schedule on Samuel's desk. "She's giving a presentation on emergency animal care at 2 p.m. Be there." Saturday afternoon found Samuel standing outside Conference Room C at the Javits Center, his heart pounding like he was about to give the most important pitch of his life. Through the small window in the door he could see Alice at the front of the room, speaking to an audience of about 50 veterinary professionals. She was animated, passionate, completely in her element. She was beautiful. Samuel waited until her presentation ended and the crowd filtered out. Then he slipped inside. Alice was packing up her laptop, her back to the door. "You were great up there," Samuel said. Alice spun around, her eyes wide. "Samuel, what are you doing here?" "Fighting for you, like I should have done from the beginning." He walked toward her slowly. "I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to figure out what to say to convince you we can make this work. I've rehearsed speeches, written letters, planned grand gestures. But the truth is simpler than all of that." "Samuel." "I choose you, Alice. I choose you over the deals and the money and the expectations. I choose you even when it's hard, even when my mother says cruel things, even when it feels impossible. Because life without you is just existence, and I'm done just existing." Alice's hands trembled as she set down her laptop. "What about your mother?" "My mother told me to fight for you. In one of her clear moments, she told me not to let her disease ruin my chance at happiness." Samuel took another step closer. "And she was right. I can love my mother and love you too." I can take care of her and build a life with you. It won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is." Tears streamed down Alice's face. "I'm scared, Samuel. I'm scared of being hurt again." "I know. I'm scared too. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." He reached out, gently wiping her tears with his thumb. "I'm not asking you to be patient while I figure things out. I'm asking you to figure things out with me, as partners, as equals. Liachar, what if I can't handle seeing your mother deteriorate? What if I'm not strong enough for that? Then I'll be strong enough for both of us. And when I'm not strong enough, you'll carry me. That's what love is, Alice. It's not one person sacrificing for the other. It's both people showing up even when it's hard." Alice sobbed, burying her face in Samuel's chest. He held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, feeling whole for the first time in weeks. "I missed you so much," Alice whispered. "God, Samuel, I missed you. I missed you too, every single day." He pulled back just enough to see her face. "Come back to me, Alice. Please." She nodded, unable to speak, and kissed him. It was different from their first kiss. Deeper and more desperate, full of all the fear and hope and love they'd both been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, Alice wiped her eyes and laughed shakily. "My presentation was about emergency care for animals. I should have mentioned emergency care for broken hearts." Samuel smiled. "How do you treat a broken heart? With patience, time, and someone who makes you believe in love again." She took his hand. "Let's go home, Samuel." The next 8 months were a brutal education in love and loss. Anna continued to decline, her good days becoming increasingly rare. Samuel visited her every Sunday, and Alice came with him, weathering his mother's occasional outbursts with grace and compassion that amazed him. On Anna's good days, she and Alice would talk about gardening and cooking, about Anna's life before the disease. Alice brought flowers from the farmer's market and photos of Thor, making Anna smile. On bad days, when Anna didn't recognize anyone and lashed out in confusion, Alice would sit quietly in the corner, just present, just there. "You don't have to come every week," Samuel told her once, after a particularly difficult visit. "Yes, I do," Alice replied, "because you need me there, and honestly, I need to be there too. Your mother is part of your story, Samuel. She's part of what made you who you are. I want to witness that, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts." Samuel fell in love with her all over again. In September, Anna slipped into a coma. The doctor said it could be days or weeks, but the end was coming. Samuel took a leave of absence from work and moved into the care facility, sleeping in a chair beside his mother's bed. Alice took time off from the clinic and stayed with him, bringing food he barely touched and holding his hand through the long nights. On a quiet Tuesday morning, with golden sunlight streaming through the window, Anna Grant took her last breath. Samuel was holding one of her hands. Alice was holding the other. The funeral was small, attended by old friends and distant relatives who'd fallen out of touch over the years. Samuel gave the eulogy, his voice breaking as he talked about his mother's strength and sacrifice, how she'd worked 3 jobs to put him through college, how she'd celebrated every one of his successes like it was her own. "My mother's last gift to me," Samuel said, looking at Alice in the front row, "was teaching me that love means letting go. She let go of her anger and fear long enough to see that Alice made me happy. She gave me permission to move forward, to build a life beyond grief. That's the greatest act of love I've ever witnessed." At the reception afterward, Alice stood beside Samuel, greeting guests and accepting condolences. At one point, one of Anna's old friends pulled Alice aside. "Anna talked about you," the woman said, "in the weeks before she got really sick. She said Samuel had finally found someone who saw him, really saw him, not just his money or his success. She said you made him human again." Alice's eyes filled with tears. "She told you that?" "She did. She was grateful for you, even if the disease made it hard for her to show it." That night, back at Samuel's penthouse, Alice and Samuel sat on the balcony watching the city lights. Thor was sprawled between them, snoring contentedly. "What happens now?" Alice asked quietly. Samuel took her hand. "Now we build the life my mother wanted for me, the one I want with you. And what does that life look like?" Samuel was quiet for a moment, gathering his courage. Then he slid off the couch and onto one knee. Alice's hand flew to her mouth. "Alice Chen, you saved my dog's life in Central Park, but you saved my life too. You reminded me how to feel, how to love, how to be present in my own life instead of just going through the motions. You stood beside me through the worst months of my life without flinching. You loved my mother, even when she couldn't love you back. You're the bravest, most compassionate, most infuriating person I've ever met, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" He pulled out a ring, a simple platinum band with a single diamond, elegant but not ostentatious, the kind of ring Alice would actually wear. Alice was crying, laughing, nodding all at once. "Yes. Yes, Samuel, I'll marry you, 1,000 times. Yes." Samuel slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into his arms. Thor woke up and barked, as if adding his approval. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony in Central Park, not far from the spot where they'd first met. It was a crisp April morning, the cherry blossoms in full bloom, petals drifting on the breeze like snow. Thor wore a bow tie and carried the rings in a small pouch attached to his collar. He only dropped them once. Samuel's vows made Alice cry. "You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that asking for help isn't failure, that love isn't about grand gestures, but about showing up every day, even when it's hard. You've been showing up for me since the day you saved Thor, and I promise to show up for you for the rest of our lives." Alice's vows made Samuel cry. "You gave me a reason to trust again. You proved that not everyone leaves, that not everyone sees me as a stepping stone to something better. You saw me, all of me, the messy and difficult and stubborn parts, and you chose me anyway. I choose you too, Samuel, today and always." They exchanged rings under the blossoming trees while their small group of friends and family cheered. Marcus was Samuel's best man, weeping openly. Alice's co-worker Jennifer was her maid of honor, grinning widely. At the reception afterward, at the same Thai restaurant where they'd had their first date, Samuel pulled Alice onto the makeshift dance floor. "Mrs. Grant," he murmured into her hair, "that has a nice ring to it." "Dr. Grant Chen," Alice corrected. "I'm not losing my name, rich boy." Samuel laughed. "Dr. Grant Chen it is." They swayed together as the music played, surrounded by people who loved them, and Samuel realized that this moment, this simple, imperfect, beautiful moment, was worth more than every dollar he'd ever made. Life after the wedding settled into a comfortable rhythm. Samuel and Alice bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, halfway between his office in Manhattan and her clinic. They adopted a second dog, a 3-legged pit bull mix named Charlie, that no one else wanted. They had Sunday dinners with Alice's parents, who'd been wary of Samuel at first but warmed to him when they saw how he looked at their daughter. Samuel made changes at his firm, too. He promoted Marcus to partner and started delegating more, carving out time for what actually mattered. He established a charitable foundation in his mother's name, funding Alzheimer's research and care facility improvements. Alice helped him interview candidates for the board, bringing her practical, no-nonsense perspective to his world. But it was the quiet moments Samuel treasured most. Saturday mornings in Central Park with Thor and Charlie, weeknight dinners where they cooked together in their kitchen, Alice telling him about the golden retriever with separation anxiety, while Samuel shared stories about difficult clients. Falling asleep tangled together, Alice's head on his chest, her breath warm against his skin. One evening, about a year after the wedding, Alice came home from work looking exhausted. Samuel was in the kitchen, attempting to make the Thai curry she loved. He'd failed at it approximately 27 times, but he was determined to get it right. "Rough day?" Samuel asked, kissing her forehead. "The roughest," Alice said, collapsing onto the couch. We lost a dog today, a lab named Buster. He'd been coming to us since he was a puppy. His owner was devastated. So was I. Samuel abandoned the curry and sat beside her, pulling her into his arms. I'm sorry, love. Alice was quiet for a moment, then said, Do you know what I realized today? Life is so fragile, Samuel. We act like we have all the time in the world, but we don't. Buster was only 8. His family thought they had years left with him. What are you saying? Alice pulled back to look at him. I'm saying I don't want to wait to live our life. I want to do all the things we keep saying we'll do someday. I want to travel, adopt more animals, maybe even start that animal sanctuary we've talked about. I want to fill our house with noise and love and chaos, not someday, but now. Samuel smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Then, let's do it. All of it. Really? Really? We'll start planning tomorrow. Where do you want to go first? Alice thought for a moment, then grinned. Greece. I've always wanted to see the Greek islands. Greece it is. I'll have Marcus book us tickets. Samuel Grant, did you just delegate our romantic vacation? He laughed. No, I'll book the tickets, but I'm terrible at planning trips. You might want to supervise. They spent the next hour on the couch, Alice's laptop balanced between them, looking at photos of Santorini and Mykonos and Crete. They booked a 3-week trip for the following summer, splurging on a villa with a view of the Aegean Sea. 3 weeks, Samuel said, still amazed. I haven't taken 3 weeks off in my entire career. There's a first time for everything, Alice said, kissing him. Besides, you're the boss. Who's going to fire you? The board might try. Let them try. I'll sick Charlie on them. Have you seen his teeth? They laughed, and Samuel pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair, the faint smell of antiseptic that always clung to her after work. This was happiness, he thought, not the adrenaline rush of closing a deal or the satisfaction of seeing his net worth increase. This simple, ordinary, extraordinary moment with the woman he loved. The Greek trip was everything they'd hoped for and more. They spent lazy days exploring ancient ruins and even lazier days on the beach. They ate too much spanakopita and drank too much wine. They made love in their villa with the windows open, the sound of the sea drifting in on the warm breeze. One evening, sitting on their terrace watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Alice turned to Samuel with a strange expression. What? Samuel asked. I'm happy, Alice said simply, like genuinely, deeply happy. I keep waiting for something to ruin it, for the other shoe to drop, but it doesn't. Is this real? Samuel took her hand. It's real. We're real. I spent so many years thinking I wasn't enough, Alice continued. Not pretty enough, not impressive enough, not worth sticking around for. And then you showed up with your ridiculous money and your sad eyes, and your dog who can't stop eating branches, and everything changed. You changed me too, Samuel said. Before you, I was just going through the motions, making money, making deals, filling my life with things that didn't matter. You reminded me what does matter. And what's that? This. Us, connection, love. He pulled her into his lap. I would give up every dollar I have if it meant keeping you. Good thing you don't have to choose, Alice said, kissing him. I'm not going anywhere. Medoarike, they made love as the sun set over the Aegean, and Samuel thought that if his life ended tomorrow, he'd die happy. He'd found what he'd been searching for without knowing it. Someone who saw past his wealth and success to the man underneath, someone who challenged him and supported him, and loved him unconditionally. 2 years later, on another Saturday morning in Central Park, Samuel and Alice were walking Thor and Charlie when they heard a woman screaming. They ran toward the sound and found a young woman kneeling beside a German shepherd who was convulsing. "He's choking," the woman sobbed. "Please, someone help." Alice dropped to her knees without hesitation, her hands finding the right position on the dog's abdomen. Samuel watched his wife save another dog's life, just like she'd saved Thor's all those years ago, and felt a surge of pride and love so intense it almost hurt. The dog coughed up a tennis ball and started breathing normally. The woman hugged Alice, crying with relief. Thank you, oh my God, thank you. How can I ever repay you?" Alice smiled, glancing at Samuel. "Just pay it forward. Help someone else when you can." As they walked away, Samuel pulled Alice close. "You know, I never properly thanked you for saving Thor that day." "Samuel, we're married. I think that's thanks enough." "No, I mean it. If you hadn't saved Thor, we never would have met. My whole life would be different, emptier, meaningless." "Talia." Alice stopped walking and turned to face him. "Do you really believe that everything happens for a reason? I believe Thor eating that branch was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it brought you into my life. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said, and it involves a dog choking. We're such a weird couple." Samuel laughed and kissed her, right there in the middle of the path, while Thor and Charlie tangled their leashes around their legs, and park-goers smiled as they walked past. That night, lying in bed with Alice curled against his side, Samuel thought about the journey that had brought them here, the grief, the mistakes, the fear, the courage it took to love again after loss. He thought about his mother and the final gift she'd given him, permission to be happy. "Hey, Alice," Samuel said into the darkness. "Hmm?" She was half asleep, her voice drowsy. "I love you. I know I tell you all the time, but I need you to know. You saved me, not just Thor. Me." Alice shifted, propping herself up on one elbow to look at him. Even in the dim light from the street outside, he could see the emotion in her eyes. "You saved me too, Samuel. We saved each other." She kissed him softly, then settled back against his chest. Within minutes, her breathing deepened into sleep. Samuel lay awake a while longer, listening to her breathe, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his ribs. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere in the building, a baby cried. A car alarm went off. A couple argued on the street below. Normal sounds of normal life, the kind of life Samuel had been too successful, too busy, too numb to appreciate before. But he appreciated it now. He appreciated every single moment. 5 years after their wedding, Samuel and Alice stood in front of a renovated barn in upstate New York. The sign above the door read, "Anna's Hope Animal Sanctuary." Inside were 23 rescue dogs, 15 cats, 3 horses, 2 pigs, a dozen chickens, and one very grumpy goat named Frank. "Your mother would have loved this," Alice said, squeezing Samuel's hand. "She would have," Samuel agreed. "She always said the measure of a person was how they treated those who couldn't do anything for them. These animals can't do anything for us except love us, and that's enough." They'd spent 2 years and several $1,000,000 turning the property into a state-of-the-art facility. Alice had left her clinic to run the sanctuary full-time, bringing on a team of veterinarians and caretakers. Samuel had scaled back his work even more, coming up only 3 days a week to help with the animals and handle the business side of the operation. It wasn't the life either of them had planned, but it was perfect. On the sanctuary's opening day, they gave tours to potential adopters and donors. Samuel watched Alice in her element, explaining their philosophy of rehabilitation and second chances, showing off each animal like they were her own children, and in a way, they were. At the end of the day, after everyone had left, Samuel found Alice in the pasture with the horses. She was brushing down Daisy, a mare they'd rescued from a neglect case, singing softly under her breath. "You're happy here," Samuel observed. Alice looked up, smiling. "Happier than I've ever been. Who knew that my life's purpose would be cleaning out horse stalls and bottle-feeding orphaned puppies?" "You always knew," Samuel said, joining her. "You just needed the chance to do it on this scale." "We," Alice corrected. "We needed the chance. This is our dream, Samuel, not just mine." He helped her finish brushing Daisy, their movements synchronized from years of working together. When they were done, they stood at the fence watching the sun set, just like they had in Greece all those years ago. "Do you ever miss it?" Alice asked. "The corporate world, the deals, the excitement?" Samuel thought about it honestly before answering. "Sometimes I miss the rush, but I don't miss feeling empty. I don't miss going to bed every night wondering if any of it mattered. This matters. What we're building here matters." "Yeah," Alice agreed softly. "It does." They walked back to the house they'd built on the property, a sprawling farmhouse with a wraparound porch and enough bedrooms for the visiting veterinary students they hosted. Thor was waiting on the porch, older and grayer now, but still happy to see them. Charlie had passed away the year before, peacefully in his sleep, and they'd buried him under his favorite tree on the property. Inside, Samuel made dinner while Alice caught up on paperwork. It was domestic and ordinary, and exactly what they both needed. After dinner, they sat on the porch with glasses of wine, watching the stars come out. The sounds of the sanctuary drifted to them, the horses nickering in their stalls, the dogs settling down for the night, an owl hooting in the distance. "Samuel," Alice said. "Yeah?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For believing in this dream, for using your resources to make it happen, for being my partner in every sense of the word." Samuel set down his wine glass and pulled Alice into his arms. "Thank you for giving me a reason to use those resources for something meaningful. Thank you for showing me what love really looks like. Thank you for saving Thor that day in the park." Alice laughed. "Are we really thanking a dog choking incident again?" "Always. That choking incident changed my life." They sat there in comfortable silence, holding each other, listening to the sounds of their sanctuary. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, animals to care for, donors to court, staff to manage. But tonight, right now, everything was perfect. Samuel thought back to that morning in Central Park, standing helpless while his dog choked, feeling like his whole world was ending. He'd been so lost then, so disconnected from everything that mattered. And then Alice had appeared, sharp-tongued and competent, saving Thor without expecting anything in return. She'd saved more than his dog that day. She'd saved him. "I love you, Alice Grant Chen," Samuel said into the darkness. "I love you too, Samuel Grant," Alice replied, "even when you're being sappy." "I'm not being sappy. I'm being honest. You can be both." Samuel laughed, and Alice joined in, and their laughter drifted out over the sanctuary, mixing with the sounds of all the lives they'd saved and were still saving. This was their legacy, not money or power or success, but love. The love they'd found in each other, the love they'd built through grief and doubt and fear, the love they now shared with every broken, abandoned, unwanted animal that came through their gates. It was more than enough. It was everything. Years passed. The sanctuary grew. They rescued hundreds of animals, found homes for even more. Samuel's hair turned gray at the temples. Alice's laugh lines deepened. Thor eventually passed away peacefully at the age of 14, surrounded by love, and they buried him next to Charlie under the old oak tree. They adopted more dogs, more cats, more animals that needed them. Their house was never quiet, never empty, always full of life and noise and chaos. And through it all, through the hard days and the good days and the ordinary days that made up a life, they showed up for each other, just like they'd promised. One evening, almost 15 years after they'd met, Samuel and Alice sat on their porch watching another sunset. They were older now, their movements a little slower, their hair a little grayer, but their love had only deepened with time. "Do you ever think about that day?" Alice asked. "The day we met?" "All the time," Samuel admitted. "I think about how close I came to missing you. If Thor hadn't choked on that branch, if you hadn't been there, if I hadn't come back the next week looking for you." "The universe wanted us together," Alice said. "You don't believe in that stuff." "Maybe I do now. Because the odds of everything lining up the way it did, that's more than coincidence." Samuel pulled her closer. "However it happened, I'm grateful. Every single day, I'm grateful." "Me too," Alice said. "Even on the days when Frank the goat eats through another fence," Samuel laughed. "Especially on those days." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red and purple. The sanctuary was quiet now, all the animals settled for the night. In the distance, a dog barked once, then fell silent. This was their life, this beautiful, messy, imperfect, extraordinary life they'd built together. From a choking dog to a sanctuary full of second chances, from two broken people to a love that healed them both. Samuel Grant had been a millionaire when he met Alice Chen. He was still a millionaire now. But somewhere along the way, he'd learned that wealth wasn't measured in dollars or deals or boardroom victories. Wealth was measured in moments like this, in the woman beside him who'd chosen to love him despite everything, in the animals they'd saved and the lives they'd changed, in the quiet satisfaction of knowing that every day they were making the world a little bit better. That was the real fortune, and Samuel Grant was the richest man alive. We've reached the end of this story. If this journey touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment with your rating from 0 to 10. Your feedback is what inspires us to keep creating these stories week after week. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another tale of love, redemption, and second chances. Thank you for spending this hour with us. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most unexpected encounters change our lives forever.